This is Andi Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. And for the second time this week, I am joined by renowned trainer Joel Diaz here in Miami. Joel, how are you?
I am good, thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited. It's Saturday night. We have a great event, and we're glad to be here. We're glad and happy to be part of it.
We'll come on to Saturday night shortly, but as I said to you, I want to kind of look over your career in boxing and your achievements, your highs, your lows, and kind of just reflect on it all. So, Joel, just basically take me back to kind of your first memories of boxing. When did you first enter a gym? When did you first become interested in the sport?
Well, it's a long career, man. I started boxing at the age of 13 years old. You know, I was just like every other kid running around the streets, and my hobby was fixing bikes at the time, and I discovered a boxing gym, went in there, and started training like every curious kid. And from that moment on, I've been there at the gym, started, and then became an amateur boxer. And as an amateur boxer, I started doing really well. I won a lot of tournaments, national tournaments, and my career went up to the point where I was the number one in the U.S. as an amateur fighter. I was the number one to represent the Olympics in 1992, Barcelona, and couldn't make it because I wasn't a U.S. citizen. I'm a Mexican citizen. So from there on, I thought my dreams were done. So I decided to turn professional, and as a professional boxer, I started doing well. I won the IBF 1996, and when I fought for the title elimination for a WBC title, I won. And before I fought for the WBC, I had a detachable retina in my eye. So my career was over, and I just decided to become a boxing trainer. Started training my brothers. My brother Antonio was the first person I started training. He became a world champion. And then my second brother, Julio, started training him. He was a good amateur, top amateur fighter, became a world champion 2 times, IBF. And that's when Timothy Bradley came around. Timothy Bradley came in and said, "Hey, I want you to train me." I said, "Okay." And from there on, started training Tim Bradley, 5 world titles, And it went from there to the point where I had in my gym Abner Mares, Vicente Escobedo, Lucas Matisse, Ruslan Provodnikov, Omar Figueroa, Diego de la Hoya. And right now, I have some of the top European fighters in the world. I have Shakram Giasov, Akhmad Aliyev, Israel Madrimov, and many more fighters that I have in my camp, my stable. And I'm here. Now I'm here with Avni Yildirim and putting in some great work. I'm lucky that 2019, he became part of my team. And now we're here coming into one of the biggest fights of our careers.
Well, that is a fantastic breakdown of kind of your life in boxing, a lot quicker than what I thought you'd be able to get through it. But just to kind of touch back on and reflect on some of those things, you mentioned the Olympics and how you wasn't able to compete because of your Mexican citizenship. At the time, how difficult or how heartbreaking was that to not be able to go on to fight in the Olympics for the US?
It was really hard for me because it was a dream. Me growing up as an amateur, I always went to national tournaments, and I always watched fighters from my era was Shane Mosley, Oscar de la Hoya. All them fighters, they were competing in the same tournaments as I was, and I would always see them be the best fighter of the tournament, And I said, I want to do that. I want to be able to one day be the best fighter of the tournament. And sure thing, my first trophy of best fighter of the tournament was in Arizona, and one of the biggest national tournaments. From there on, I kept winning trophies of best fighter of the tournament. So to me, that was like a championship title, So when I started winning and representing the national team, and I made the team to become part of the Olympic team, everything was great. I was competing and I was winning. But when the cut started, getting into who's going to go represent the U.S. in the Olympics, and they said, "Oh, wow, you can't because you're not a U.S. citizen." But they tried to help me, but you can go to Mexico and represent Mexico, and that was not what I wanted, I lived in the United States. To me, going to Mexico and represent Mexico I had to start all over. And to start from the bottom up again, it was going to be hard. So it was heartbreaking for me. So I was upset, and I said, I'm going to turn professional now. No more amateur boxing, turn professional, and that's how we started my professional career.
How did kind of your own thought process develop when you had that heartbreaking kind of decision put upon you where you wasn't able to go to the Olympics, deciding to turn pro? How did you find kind of pushing yourself to do so? Because I imagine it may have crossed your mind. I'm not saying it did, but it may have crossed your mind kind of walking away from the sport because of the political side to it that you experienced so early on in your career. Did it ever cross your mind back then?
It's crossed my mind every day of my career, even up to now. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, coming up as a kid, I mean, it's crossed my mind walking away from the sport. Even on my first fight, my first 4 fights, the story of my life was I started as an amateur kid at age 13, fighting at 135 pounds. I was 13 years old, weighing 135 pounds. I fought my first fight, I lost. I lost my second fight, my third fight, and my fourth fight as an amateur. So to me, boxing is not for me. I was going to quit my first 4 fights. But I said, nah, I'll wake up and I'll still go to the gym. And then when I started winning, I was the number 1 fighter in the nation at 100 pounds. 100 pounds. I lost 35 pounds. I was 15 years old fighting at 100 pounds. So then I moved up from 100 to 112, and then from 112 to 119, 126, and then 130 and 135. So, you know, it was hard. I mean, I said, boxing is not for me. I lost my first 2 fights. So then when I started fighting and I started doing good, and then when the Olympics, the Olympic dream fell into the trash, I said, I'm going to stop. This is not for me, but kept going. As a professional fighter, I kept fighting, and everything was going good until I couldn't fight no more. And I fought for the world title in South Africa against Philip Holliday. And I fought basically with one eye because I had a cut on this eye. I couldn't see much of this eye. I came back to California after a decision loss to Philip Holliday. And I said, you know what? Probably this is it for me. But I had an opportunity to fight for the WBC title. And I got an opportunity to fight for I was the number 1 mandatory for it. I win the fight with one eye. Nobody knew I couldn't see out of one eye. But after that fight, I couldn't fight anymore. So I said, my career is over. I can no longer fight anymore. So I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to do boxing. I didn't want to do nothing. I was very, very upset for a long time until, you know, I changed my mind and went to the gym and started helping my own brothers. And since that moment on, I've been here. But in that trajectory of time that you say, okay, as you started as a trainer to now, there's been many times where I want to just walk away from the sport. I want to quit. I want to just, there's so much stress in a trainer's life that some people don't see, that it crosses my mind and say, you know what, I'm done, it's over, I just go look for an 8-hour job and just live a normal life. It's too much stress, but I'm here. The sport of boxing, it's a drug. You cannot walk away from it. As much as I've cried. I've talked to my family and said, you know, I'm done. But I'm here. The sport of boxing is a magnet. If you step away, it'll bring you back. It's a drug. It's addictive. I mean, there's times in which I'm away from home for a week on a vacation, and I say, I'm going to stop all this for a week. 2-3 days later, I want to go back to the gym when I'm supposed to be on vacation. It is, I mean, as bad as it sounds, this sport of boxing is worse than a drug. It's very addictive.
Do you understand them when you see the likes of, you know, the Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. fight, 2 legends of the sport, they come back and have a fight in their 50s? Do you understand why they got back into the ring more so, as you just said, it's just a drug, and nothing else in their lives may well have been able to replicate the highs that both of them achieved when they were professionals?
I totally understand them. I want to fight too. Right now, at this point, I want to fight. I want to get in the ring and fight. But this is the way it is. It's the instinct of a fighter. That's the reason why you got to have people behind you that can tell you, you cannot. You're going to get hurt. There's a point in your life where you can no longer do it. But fighters that once were great boxers or were boxers, they're going to be old. They're going to get old. And their mentality is never going to change. They're always going to say, I could still get in the ring. Your mind tells you one thing, but your body gives you another. I mean, I feel that I can get in the ring and fight somebody. But that's what my mind tells me. But my body doesn't give me what I expect. Because once your age starts hitting in, you're going to get hurt. That's the problem.
Before we come on to your life as a trainer, Joel, I just want to touch on, you mentioned your detached retina that forced you to retire. Again, just going back to that, what was that period in your life like, trying to deal with the fact that your career had been taken away from you through injury?
Well, I thought my life was over. I'm telling you, my life went crazy. It was very difficult for me to adapt to the point where the only thing I did as a kid was boxing. I never played any other sports. I never liked anything else but boxing. My life was boxing. And I did boxing for the reason of helping my parents. My parents, we come from poverty where we didn't have much to eat, where I came home from school at times and there was no electricity in my home. I would come home from school and there was no water at home because they would shut the water, the electricity, because my parents couldn't afford it. So my life was basically working hard, training boxing so that I can help my family, help my mother, help my father. And when I was 18 years old, I turned professional. I bought my mom her first home. I bought my mom her house. I bought my father a car. And it went from there. Every time I would fight, I would always fight to help my parents, buy furniture, buy things for the home. I never thought about things for myself. It was always for my family. That's the reason why when I couldn't fight anymore due to an eye injury, I was mad. I was mad at God because I said, why does God do this to me? The only thing I did was train and box for a reason to help my family. There's other people that make money in the sport and they're partying, buying new jewelry and drugs and alcohol. I was never like that. Never. I never used drugs. I drink a beer or two, but I've never been an alcoholic. But my purpose in life was to become a great boxer, to generate enough income to help my family because we come from a very poor family. And when my career ended due to an eye injury, I was very upset. I was like, why did God do this to me? I never liked to wear jewelry. I never liked to wear nothing because I'm not like that. I'd rather buy my parents, buy my kids something than me wearing anything. So it was really upsetting for me. That's why I was like, I don't want nothing to do with the sport. Why did this happen to me? So then, with time, me getting into trouble in the streets, I went the wrong way, man. I was working for some people in the dark streets, as a bodyguard. I did some bodyguard for some crazy people, and I started going the other way, where I left my house and I didn't know if I was coming home, spending days and nights, traveling with people just in the dark business. But then later on, knowing my mom was worried for me and talking to me, and I had to change. I had to change my life and decided to start training my brothers. And that's how everything changed. My life changed, but I'm still here.
When you retired from boxing yourself, Joel, financially, if you reach the top of a sport, it can be very rewarding. You had your career taken away from you and potentially some career high paydays ahead of you. When you left financially, how was kind of your life looking? Was you frustrated that you wasn't able to kind of get out of the sport what you put into it, or was you at least in a position where you could kind of keep things ticking over? How did you kind of that lie?
When I retired from boxing, I'm going to tell you, I was in a bad position. Really bad position, because I never made money. In my career, I never made money. The most money I made in one fight was $20,000. And that was my world championship fight in Africa. Walking away from a $20,000 fight, I walk away with $14,000. Okay? What is $14,000? That was my biggest payday of my career, helping my family. So it's not like, Joel Diaz retired from the sport of boxing and he's set so that he can live. Never. I struggled in that side of the sport where there was never big paydays. The paydays were barely coming in. If I would have won that fight, that world title fight, or won the WBC, I probably would have made some decent money so that I could be okay. So no, honestly, I won my title on a Saturday, and on Monday I was working because I did construction work. I was working for a sheet metal company doing roofing for 16 years. I fought on Saturday, on Monday I was working construction. So there was never a time where, this guy is like, never. I always work. I will go fight. My boss would tell me, okay, no problem, take days off, go fight, and I will go fight on the weekend, and I'll be back to work on Monday. For 16 years of my career. I stopped working construction when Timothy Bradley fought a little bit before he fought Casamayor. That was the time of my life when I did construction. Even when I was boxing myself, I worked. I would work. There was times when I was in school, I would wake up in the morning, go run, go to school, go to the gym. That was my life. And when I started working, I would wake up in the morning, go run, come home, shower, go to work, come from work. And working in California is hard. We live in a desert. Coming from work and then eating and then go to the gym. Getting ready for a fight. It was not like these fighters nowadays that they have everything where everything, their focus is boxing. I never had that. My life was, I had to work, I had to run, I had to work, I had to come to the gym and train. It wasn't easy. I mean, back then it was completely different from nowadays. When I used to go to school, I did everything. Run, school, and gym. And then when I started working, it was like run, go to work, 8 hours of construction, because I never work at a restaurant. I never work indoors. It was always outdoors in the heat, especially in summertime when it's like 118 degrees, and still come home and still go to the gym.
Mental health in general is kind of it's something which is certainly being talked about a lot more now. During your life, and especially in your dark times, Joel, did you struggle with your mental health?
I never had problems with my mental health. You know, I've always been I have a strong mindset. You know, I've never been that type of person, you know, that has a weak mindset, you know. I mean, I'm not like that. I've never went through depression or none of that. I've always had a strong mindset, you know. So it never affected me in that way. I just wanted to, I was just a little stressed because I would think, why are these things happening to me when the purpose of my career was to help people, you know? I mean, I see people that are successful. They make millions of dollars and they're good. And their intentions are never to help somebody, you know? It's just they think about them. And me, it was different. I never thought about me. I thought about everybody else.
Talk about that moving to training fighters, Joel. How did you find the transition then, going into the sport, training your brothers? How did you find it?
How did I find it? When I decided to train fighters, it was my brother, like I told you. When my brother was training, and I said, okay, I'm going to help my brother train. And then at one point I said, okay, I put on some mitts and started doing mitts with my brother, and then started doing mitts with another guy and another guy. I brought kids from amateurs to professionals to undefeated records before my brother. And I liked it. I go, oh, this is fun. And I became a trainer, and I said to myself one day, I'm going to become a trainer, but not an average trainer. I'm going to be a good trainer because I'm going to dedicate myself 100%. A lot of trainers say, oh, I'm going to train and just hold mitts. And I mean, to be a trainer, it takes a lot. A lot of people don't see it. I mean, you guys don't see it. I mean, you guys do interviews, but you guys don't know what the sacrifices that the coaches go through. I mean, we do sacrifices that a lot of people will not do, especially when it comes to family. I mean, we've missed special family moments. We've missed moments that they will never come back. Birthdays, anniversaries, funerals, you know, that you will never, because we're always on the go. Next month, I have a fight on my wife's birthday, and I'm not going to be there. But people don't see that. We go through it, and to us, it means a lot, you know? And that's a lot of things that people just talk about the coaches and, oh, they're doing great, they have money, and but they don't know the work we do, you know? We do a lot of work. Chuito, Ahmed.
Joel, just pick one, back up there. We know you trained your brothers. What was it like seeing your brother lift the world title and being in his corner, having guided him through his career to do so?
Who?
Julio. What was it like to see Julio lift that world title? Yeah.
My brother Julio was a very technical fighter, great fighter. He did a great career. And, you know, to me, honestly, my brothers were some of the best fighters that I've trained because they were hungry in the sport from beginning to end.
What was the relationship like as a kind of training your brothers? Were they always listening? Did you have disagreements? Did you argue? What was that kind of dynamic like?
There's always disagreements, especially among brothers, you know. But my brothers always had that respect of me because I'm the oldest. They've always had that respect. But there's always disagreements, but minor disagreements, never big problems, issues. We went to England. He fought Amir Khan. And in a fight where I thought he won the fight, I mean, it was Amir Khan's fight. He drops Amir Khan in the 4th round, and from there on, it was like a war fight. Julio was supposed to be just like like an opponent for Amir Khan. And Julio put the best fight of his life against Amir Khan. But oh well, he came back. I think Julio beat Sean Porter in his first fight, and they gave it a draw. And then the second fight with Sean Porter, he lost. And then towards the end, he put up a great fight against Keith Thurman. And, he had a great career, but he was towards the end of his career. So,
reflect on your time with Timothy Bradley. He's one name. He's gone on to achieve so much with your guidance as well. How would you kind of sum up your time working with Timothy?
Working with Tim Bradley was one of the best, because one of the best moments of my life were working with Tim Bradley. The reason why is because everybody underestimated Bradley. Everybody. That's why all this bullshit that goes on here, it already went back in my mind. When I was coming with Tim Bradley and fighting Tim Bradley against Kendall Holt, against Junior Witter, going to England and people laughing at me like, oh, you think you're going to beat Junior Witter? Yeah, we're going to beat Junior Witter, and you'll see we'll come back, we were going through customs, and I was very annoyed through customs when they're laughing at us. Oh, Tim Bradley's going to get knocked out. All right, okay, sir, okay, see you. Tim Bradley told an officer, what is your name? I'm going to come back, and I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to bring the belt. And the officer is laughing. Okay, when we came back, we were looking for the officer, because Tim Bradley had a mentality of a winner, even though everybody thought he was a loser. When he fought Kendall Holt, nobody thought he would beat Kendall Holt. When he beat Devin Alexander, nobody thought he would beat Devin Alexander. When he fought Manny Pacquiao, they threw him in there just to prepare Pacquiao for a Mayweather fight. And yes, a lot of people say, oh, Pacquiao won. I mean, we were not the judges. We were not the judges that night. We were fighters. I was a coach. Bradley was a fighter. And we went in there and did our job. One of the judges told me one day, Mr. Diaz, never feel ashamed of what happened that night. People attack you, and yes, we had some death threats from people saying that we robbed. How can we rob? We were just fighters. But the thing is this, the judge told me one day, Pacquiao only fought 30 seconds of every round. Bradley fought 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay, we won. On paper, we won. Regardless, Tim Bradley was always the underdog, and he won. When Marquez knocked out Manny Pacquiao, after that, who did we fight? We fought Marquez. Marquez thought we were going to lose. All this right here reminds me of the time when Bradley fought Marquez. I would come to the press conference, and everybody's like, oh, so you think Bradley has what it takes to beat Marquez? And I'm like, we're going to beat him, no problem. And people will laugh. At the end of the day, Tim Bradley fought and beat Marquez in a spectacular fashion. And that's why I'm telling you, one of the greatest moments of my career is always being underdog. Through all of Tim Bradley's careers and some of his biggest fights, we were underdogs, and we kept winning 5 world titles. So, I mean, we left a great career behind. Tim Bradley's a very successful guy. I mean, a great kid. I mean, great guy as a person. Great fighter, very physically strong, very humble, family man, respectful. I mean, I can't say nothing bad about the guy. I mean, we did a career together. He is where he is because of me, and I am where I am because of him. Together, we formed a great duo, and nothing wrong, nothing bad to say about Tim Bradley. Always the best, because we had a great career together.
That's fantastic to hear, Joel. Obviously, you guys had so much success together throughout your time. But when you guys did split, how difficult was that because of the success you had throughout such a long period of time, like I said?
It bothered me for a while. But I ran into Bradley recently in certain occasions. He's a great guy. He hugs me, I hug him back, and we got a great communication. The breakup between him, it wasn't because of him. There was other issues behind, but it is what it is. He's still gonna be part of my life. I'm always gonna be part of his life, and it's gonna go on until the end.
Talk about some of your fighters before we do come on to this weekend. Giorgio Diaz, what's Giorgio like now? Obviously on the back of the draw a couple of weeks ago, just kind of going back to that. What are your assessments of it?
Giorgio Diaz, well, I'm not gonna say anything bad about Giorgio Diaz. I helped him train for 3 fights prior to this last one. Very talented kid, a lot of potential. Too bad he couldn't make weight for his last one, and he lost his title on the scale. When he fought in Miami, 2020, we trained together for the fight. He won the world title against Stephen Farmer. But after that, I mean, he did his own training. We had a pandemic, and going into this fight, He started his own camp. I was never called to help him. So, nothing bad to say about the kid. He is responsible for his own actions. Whatever happens, we don't know about it. I cannot talk bad about him because I don't know what he went through. Fighters and coaches go through a lot of things in camp. So much respect for Giorgio Diaz, and hopefully he gets back on his track and retains his world title again.
You've got the likes of Akhmadaliev, Melikuziev as well. Kind of, you mentioned these European fighters. What is it that you feel that you get so many European fighters wanting to come and work with you?
Well, the thing is, I formed a good relationship with when Timothy Bradley fought Ruslan Provodnikov. I was at the time a big fan of Ruslan Provodnikov, and his management, really good friends, really good people. They approached me to train Ruslan Provodnikov after he fought Bradley because he was training a wild card with Frey Roach, and at one point it was talks of him fighting Manny Pacquiao, and they couldn't train with the same trainer. So I was going to train Provodnikov for the fight, but it never happened. Ruslan Provodnikov liked the way I trained, so he was in India with me, and then we formed a really good relationship with his management group. And now that they're bringing fighters from Europe, they brought them to me, and I'm established already with a great team of fighters from Israel Madrimov, Shakram Giasov, Akhmadaliev, Bektemir Melikuziev, Elnor. I mean, I have a lot of European fighters right now, and great, some of the top, Batir Akhmedov, Rajab Butayev, who just fought Bisputin recently. So we have a great team, and nothing's going to stop me right now. I still have a long way to go. I have a lot more champions to create, and I'm just happy to be part of their team, and I'm part of being here.
Just quickly stop and start there, Joel, before it times out. Diego De La Hoya, just talk to me about working with Diego. A lot of expectation on his shoulders because of the Oscar De La Hoya relationship. What was it like training Diego there?
Diego was a good kid. Diego was a great, talented fighter, but he's lacking some discipline. His problem is lacking discipline, and a lot of fighters, they do that. Once they start lacking discipline based on their weight issues, that becomes a problem. And if he was to fix that undisciplined actions that he has based on his weight, he will be a top champion.
Now, coming on to this coming weekend, Avni Yildirim steps in with somebody who many consider the best fighter in the sport. A tough first fight for you both to have together. You just said to me earlier on, you love this underdog status, you love that underdog tag. What gives you so much confidence that Avni Yildirim will be successful on Saturday night and will overcome Canelo?
The work that we put in. The work that we put in is what gives me the confidence of an outcome. Because if you train hard, if you train really hard, you shouldn't have a doubt of getting in there and performing at your best. But if you don't train properly, then obviously there's going to be doubts. I mean, Avni Yildirim trained really hard, extremely hard. We did the extra on the training. He's physically prepared, mentally ready. He's excited. He's motivated. So when all that is put together, I mean, you shouldn't have a doubt that we're going to have a good outcome this Saturday night.
Joel, do you find it disrespectful when there's already talk of Canelo Billy Joe Saunders taking place in May when you've still got the fight coming this weekend?
I don't feel any disrespect in any way. I ignore it because we have a fight Saturday. I mean, if they're looking past Avni Yildirim, that's fine. But I don't really look into it. I don't really think about it because to me, it's not important, in other words. To me, what's important is Saturday. Whatever their plans are, I don't care. Saturday night, we might ruin their plans. You never know. A lot of people always, look into the future before looking into the present, and they don't get to the future because things will stop in the present.
What have you been studying on Canelo, and what exactly are you expecting in this fight? A very different style between Yildirim and Callum Smith, but do you take anything away from the Canelo-Callum Smith fight? Anything that you've noticed that you can kind of target and exploit from Canelo's performance?
First of all, I've never seen, I've seen Callum Smith fight, but I haven't seen him much. I saw him against Canelo, but I didn't think he did what he needed to do. I think he felt Canelo's power, and he went into survival mode, just like some of the fighters did in the past. But Yildirim is a completely different fighter. Every fighter is different. Yildirim and Callum Smith are two different fighters, and Avni, I think Avni is a fighter that has more eager to look for the victory. He's going to take more risks. He's going to get in there and give it his all. I think Callum Smith was more cautious. He tried not to get knocked out. He was more into the survival, But I mean, we'll see Saturday. The only way to find out is we're going to see Saturday night. What the work that we put in with Avni Yildirim is going to do.
Victory for Avni on Saturday, Joel. How big of a victory would that be in the history of the sport, in your opinion? Especially because, again, so many just consider Canelo such a strong favourite heading into it.
I mean, that's a question that it makes a lot of sense. If we win this fight Saturday night, the magnitude of the celebration and shocking the world, just like Andy Ruiz did with Anthony Joshua. I mean, it will be similar, no? Nobody expected Andy Ruiz to win. And when he stopped Anthony Joshua, I mean, it was a big shock in the world. And I think this will be the same.
Joel, just to move forward, and my final thing, you mentioned you feel like you've got more champions to make, more left in you with the sport. Have you thought about life after boxing? Have you thought about how long you feel you've got left in the game?
I've been wanting to quit since the last 5 years. But, I mean, like I said, I have a goal. I have a goal. I have projects. I have projects in the future that are coming along that if everything goes well in my plans, maybe I just, try things different, I will train other trainers to do the physical work, and I don't think I'll ever retire from the sport myself, but I will be more of an advisor, more of a knowledge, a knowledge person outside the ring, and let somebody else do the physical work. But I don't think I'll be able to walk away from the sport. I've tried it before, and and if I really think about it deep, and if I say, what, I'm done with this, I have a feeling that knowing myself the way I am, if I walk away from the sport and say I'm done with it, a week later I'll be back.
Joel, it's been a pleasure to talk to you today and to talk so in depth about your life in boxing and your life in general. I appreciate you opening up as much as what you have. Best of luck on Saturday. It's been great to meet you for the first time this week. I'll keep in touch and we'll speak again soon. Thank you for speaking to Boxing Social.
No problem. Right, let me tell you a quick story that happened to me. It is a real true story. When it was before I started training Bradley. I was training at the gym, and I was training at a boxing club where I grew up, and I was training fighters. The trainer that trained me was always there. He trained me. He helped train a lot of other fighters. So I was tired of putting work in for all these fighters, but nobody gave me credit. My brother Antonio was training kids, youth, at a Boys and Girls Club. So I went over there with him. I told him, I'll help you train. He goes, but nobody's going to pay you. I said, no problem. I'll train for free. For 1 year, I trained kids for 1 year for free to help my brother. And then after a year, they started paying me 4 hours a day, $10 an hour. I said, okay, no problem. I'll be here. Training kids, helping my brother train. There was one kid that I will never forget for the rest of my life. His name is Enrique. He said he wanted to be like Marco Antonio Barrera, good little fighter. He started with us when he was 6. At that time, he was 9. And he liked the way my brother trained him. But he wanted me to train him because he thought I was a better trainer. And one day, I told my brother Antonio, you know what? I'm tired of this sport. I'm done. He goes, what are you going to do? I'm going to go work in construction. That's what I do. He goes, you're going to quit? I go, yeah, I'm done. I'll see you later. I shook his hand, and I walk out the back door, and I'm going to my car. As I'm parking, the kid gets off the car with his father. And the kid had his bag. And he looks at me and he goes, hey, coach, I was going to tell you, I like the way you train. He says, would you train me? He says, I want to be like Marco Antonio Barrera. And his father's telling me, yeah, he loves the way you train. He's always been telling me that he wants you to train him, but he don't want to tell your brother. I look at the kid and I said, remember, 2 minutes ago, I had quit. I walked away. I'm leaving. And the kid looks at me and goes, would you train me? I want to be a world champion. I want to be like Marco Antonio Barrera. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, we used to call him campeón, champion. I go, campeón, I'll see you tomorrow. Since that moment on, I've been there.